Hey everybody, welcome to the broadcast. We're with my longtime friend, Marin County District 1 Supervisor Damon Connolly. Damon, welcome and how you doing?
Good afternoon, Zennie. It's great to see you again. We're doing okay. Hopefully you as well.
Yeah, absolutely same, and it's a pleasure to have you here. And folks, this is, as you know, how I work. This is always.
Hey everybody, welcome to the broadcast.
Always,
We're with my longtime friend.
Always the platform of the guest, and that's certainly true in this instance. So we're going to go right through and get started with the questions that were laid out, and I really can't wait to present these and have you learn more about what the goals and objectives for the supervisor are for this year 2021. So without any further ado, Supervisor, COVID vaccine and economic recovery. Let's talk.
Thank you, Zennie. Those are the big issues, and as you know, we certainly are living through a historic moment. The decisions we're making right now on COVID, on racial justice and equity, on our economy, are going to have long-lasting impacts. And you know, we fully recognize the impacts COVID is having on everyone. We appreciate everything folks are doing individually, their families, taking all the precautions. You know, what's been interesting serving as a county supervisor is it's really underscored county government is in the center of all these issues right now. So it's both exciting and daunting. You know, on any given day or week, we deal with a lot of issues, and hopefully we can get into some of those today. But what this is really underscored is that at its core, our mission is protecting the public health, and that's really kind of central to what we do. The vaccine right now is issue 1, 2, and 3 for people. It's our top priority. Needless to say, there have been some challenges around supply chain and distribution. We're working through those. We're making sure that any supply we get is not staying in the freezer or on the shelf. It's getting into people's arms. And the key has really been effective communication. So given the constraints right now, we've been prioritizing initially healthcare workers. We're just about through that right now. We're now working through residents age 75 and up. They have been shown to be the most at-risk folks during the pandemic. We're going to be moving quickly to 65 and up and essential workers as well to get shots in people's arms. But really, this has required, you know, forging partnerships, government, healthcare providers, civic and business leaders, community-based organizations, all recognizing the magnitude of what we're facing right now. So although the work is far from done, what's been really gratifying so far is the level of people coming together and forming those partnerships. And I think really this upcoming year, we're looking forward to completing the vaccines in a safe way, the final steps of getting our economy back open, and then looking to the future. And we'll get into that a little bit later. Just how does that look? What are some of the challenges? What are some of the opportunities? Again, it's what kind of makes my job interesting right now.
Hey, so let's talk about shelter in place. Marin was a leader in shelter in place, isn't that right?
We were. Thank you. Yes, you may recall with your Bay Area roots that back in March 2020, Marin County was actually one of 5 Bay Area jurisdictions that were the first in the nation actually to issue shelter in place orders. And you know, we've seen some good results. Currently, Marin I'm happy to report, actually has the third lowest daily case rate among smaller counties in the entire state. So just a quick trip back, and it's hard to believe that we're coming up almost on a year that we've been in the pandemic situation. But early on, public health and community partners addressed personal protective equipment or PPE issues, significant ramping up of testing. Back in March, there were about 100 tests per day. We now are clocking in at over 2,000 tests per day as of December. I think that's one of the highest testing rates in the entire state. Public health is actively engaging with the community at all different levels. That included business reopening guidelines, sending strike teams to particular hotspot areas. What became very evident to us is that this pandemic had a disproportionate impact on certain communities. For example, in San Rafael, and my district is kind of the greater San Rafael area, adjacent is a neighborhood called the Canal, which is primarily Latinx folks. They were getting a disproportionate impact from the pandemic, largely for two reasons. They are essential workers. They have been in grocery stores, on construction sites, all the key economic activities that have been going on, home health care, et cetera. Secondly, oftentimes, unfortunately, living in overcrowded conditions, which has also been a contributing factor to the pandemic. So we were seeing elevated case rates there. So really honing in, providing resources there was a key initial step. You may remember we also have San Quentin Prison in Marin County, and there was an infamous outbreak there. It virtually overwhelmed the facility. So working as well with state officials, we had to rapidly get on that as well. So particularly with the Canal and other areas, it's been, again, you'll hear me repeat this, those partnerships, combining with community-based organizations, with cultural competence, with the trust in the community, where we went in and said, look, we understand the needs you have, whether it's food for your families, whether it's sheltering in place because you either were exposed to it at your job or in your living situation, to provide, for example, hotel rooms for those folks to quarantine safely, rental assistance, eviction protections, which we have implemented countywide. In fact, those were just updated and extended now through the end of June. And I think the state has now followed suit. So essentially, I think some of those targeted, kind of really focused efforts have paid off, where we're seeing case rates go down. And again, I cannot thank enough the essential workers, our community partners, our county staff who have really stepped up throughout this.
Hey, so there's a perception that Marin is rich, but how is Marin County's economy really doing? Is it suffering?
It is. And we're not unique in that regard. In fact, it's suffering a lot. And I would say that that has been really, in particular for me, has been one of the focuses of getting through this, in addition to, of course, the paramount concern for public health. In fact, early in the pandemic response, one of my colleagues and I, Supervisor Judy Arnold, created the Marin Economic Recovery Task Force, which brought together representatives from every chamber of commerce throughout Marin, all the cities and towns, our Marin Economic Forum, stakeholder groups, including some of the community-based organizations I mentioned previously, speaking up for underserved communities. And really the objective was threefold: exchanging information, right? You recall, and this is somewhat true still, information is changing by the day, if not the hour. So just there's a real market, if you will, for up-to-date, accurate information. Working through reopenings or partial closures, as the case may be, on a public health basis. Advocating at the state and federal level. As you know, a lot of the recovery is hinged on federal programs like the Paycheck Protection programs and different grant and loan options for our small businesses. And then again, the notion of as we emerge, and given there's a lot of uncertainties, yes, but starting to think about what does a mid or long-term economic development strategy look for Marin County. I know all of our communities around the Bay Area and even nationally are looking at that. So some of the things we did is we created a small business relief grant fund process locally to help small businesses. Some creative stuff, we use parking to facilitate kind of outdoor dining and curbside pickup. Some of this stuff I think is going to last beyond the pandemic. I think people like the notion of kind of, the outdoor dining and those kind of things. Developing a shop local campaign, improving access to capital, and again, seeking funding for some of the more strategic long-term thinking that I talked about. We also here again recognize the disproportionate impact. So with regard to underserved communities, we established a $900,000 small business relief program for businesses with low-income owners and or businesses with 50% or more of employees being low income, and trying to really get those dollars out to the economy quickly. On the long-term, midterm front, again, our economy in our society in so many ways is going through a lot of transformation. It's going to be very interesting to see how people work, where people work, where they live, how do they get to work, and we'll talk about transportation a little bit more. But in the meantime, I think what we can all be doing is keep shopping local, keep supporting our small businesses, and let's keep an eye on equity as we move through all these steps and making sure we have a resilient, vibrant economy moving forward.
Hey, folks, this is District 1 Supervisor of Marin County, Damon Connolly. Marin County is actually just north of San Francisco, for those who might be watching from Bangladesh at some point, just so you have some idea. So moving forward with this, let's talk about the inauguration.
Let's do it.
Yeah. What'd you think, man?
How exciting was it? Am I right? And I actually had an opportunity to work out in Wisconsin as a poll observer during the election, and truly kind of saw what a swing state looks like. But we got it done there. So could not be more overjoyed about the message emerging of unity with the inauguration of President Biden and Vice President Harris. I think we're going to really see, and we already are seeing with some of the early moves, the opportunity for significant impact on people's daily lives. And we're seeing a lot of firsts. The first African-American, multiracial female vice president, let alone Bay Area native.
She's
Kamala,
Kamala, man.
Kamala Harris. Are we proud or what?
Do you have a Kamala story? I just want to.
I'm friends with their brother-in-law, Tony West, who you may know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we worked together under Bill Lockyer at the California Attorney General's office back in the day. And obviously have been watching and supporting Kamala's rise throughout the years, and obviously could not be prouder and more overjoyed. How about the first Latino senator in California, Alex Padilla? In Georgia, in Georgia, we welcomed a Jewish and African-American senator, John Ossoff and the Reverend Raphael Warnock. So these are significant changes. They're spreading hope, I believe, for people of all backgrounds across the land. And I think really underpinning all of our efforts and commitment to strive for equity, justice, and democracy.
At the risk of throwing you a tiny curveball, but one I think you'll enjoy for a second, you know that guy.
I do. There he is.
Tony.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
Tony, I just want to mark this occasion to let you know we're talking about you.
Yeah. We'll have to let him know.
Moving forward in our conversation.
He and Maya, Kamala's sister, were looking good in the inaugural parade, by the way.
There you go. And moving forward with our questions, this has been really a time for youth, and a major unprecedented outpouring of change, and particularly last summer after George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter protests. And how has all of this impacted Marin from your perspective?
It's had a huge impact. Marin, Bay Area, nation, and world, and hats off to our youth really for leading it. During the Black Lives Matter protests last summer, I actually had the opportunity to march with protesters down 4th Street in San Rafael, which is kind of our main street. And I think throughout our country and county, we really saw an awakening take hold. I was proud of our community, particularly what became very evident to me right away, that this was youth-led and that it was truly an overdue reckoning as our youth stood up, spoke up, and organized peaceful protests. What we really made clear and continue to do so, and now it's time to continue to do the work, is that Marin's voice is clear. We support communities of color and we demand justice. So I think as we do the work, we need to acknowledge that policies and practices may change, but they must be accompanied by the promotion of people of color throughout government, law enforcement, society, and that is in leadership, with political and economic power. Representation matters. So we have a number of things going on in Marin, both internal to government and external to the larger community. We've hired an equity officer. Our board set aside $2 million or $2.7 million out of the sheriff's budget toward equity initiatives. We took a deep dive with our community members into revising and establishing law enforcement policies through an updated use of force and duty to intervene standard, among other changes. Here's something that is now emerging. I think it's going to be significant, and this is statewide. Our county has proactively started reporting on police profiling, and this is per a state law, Assembly Bill 953, the California's Racial and Identity Profiling Advisory Board, or RIPA. Marin actually we're not scheduled to begin, I guess, based on our county size or whatever, still for some time, but we already are doing it. And we want to signal that transparency is going to be at the forefront. So there's a lot of work ahead as we focus to address systemic racism and focus on equity. But I'm excited that we're underway in doing that.
Now, I know homelessness is a very big issue, and well, what's Marin County doing about it?
Yeah, it always has been a big issue. Again, no surprise to you with your Bay Area roots. Needless to say, the pandemic is only making the issues more pronounced, particularly in my district, which kind of has a downtown. There's always been a homeless issue. So we are, this is probably one of my top few issues that I work on every day. And we're making some good progress. We've adopted a housing first model, which is really to look at everyone through the lens of dignity and respect, and everyone needs a roof over their head. And then wrapping around with services to ensure physical health, address substance use, quite often mental health issues, as we all know, that contribute to homelessness. Happy to report that since implementing coordinated entry and the housing first approach in Marin, we have housed well over 300 homeless individuals, and the overwhelming majority remain in stable housing. Another program you may have heard about, and this was initiated through the state, Governor Newsom has created the opportunity for localities to actually purchase hotels and office buildings and convert them into homeless housing. This kind of follows a successful program during the pandemic, Project Room Key, which enabled us and other counties and cities to utilize hotels to house the homeless. So this is a more permanent move toward that. So we've purchased two home key projects, a motel in Corte Madera and an office building in San Rafael, which will create 62 new apartment units for the homeless. And basically, we're excited about that. In addition to, again, bolstering kind of rapid rehousing of folks, coordinated entry, and focusing on homelessness amongst families. A couple other real highlights we're proud of. We've set a goal, ambitious goal of ending chronic homelessness among veterans. We feel that that is realistic, and in fact have secured a site to get us essentially to that goal in Nevada that's now under construction. We're rebuilding and expanding a shelter facility at Mill Street in San Rafael. One program I'm proud of, one of my first initiatives a few years ago when I became supervisor, is a landlord partnership program utilizing Section 8 vouchers and incentivizing landlords to step up and house more homeless folks and those precariously housed. So we're continuing that successful strategy going forward. One final quick point on this, and I did mention the oftentimes co-occurring situation of mental health issues for folks on the street. And we really are trying to break that cycle, you know, the revolving door that finds people on the street, and then in the back of a police car or ambulance, and then in jail or the hospital, back on the street, and then repeat the cycle. So tying in a little bit to just kind of the reimagining law enforcement component as well, we're putting a heavy duty emphasis on alternatives like mobile crisis units that go out and meet folks in crisis either where they're at on the street or in their homes, and address issues and get them into the right services. And we're really seeing a good partnership with our cities and towns and law enforcement on that. So I think that program is only going to expand as well.
And I know some of that you touched on, but how is Marin handling the need for housing overall in the Bay Area?
Yeah, so that's a larger ongoing issue. Everyone knows kind of the shortage of housing in the Bay Area, the level of expense of housing. People are really stretched. That's no different in Marin, needless to say. And again, the pandemic has highlighted that issue as well. So in Marin, we are pursuing local strategies, and of course, we're also part of a larger region. So there's some innovative things going on. I mean, I think we're looking at ways of utilizing existing housing and existing buildings to preserve affordability. For example, in my district, and this isn't that uncommon, we have an underutilized shopping mall, right? So as we see these kind of fundamental changes in retail, we also have the opportunity to kind of reimagine mixed use opportunities and maybe creating more vibrancy for areas. And I think the community is really buying in to that kind of thing. Tenant protections have been a huge issue. I mentioned earlier that we recently re-upped COVID-related eviction moratoria, where folks now cannot be evicted for COVID reasons, and that was just extended. We are providing a significant amount of rental relief directly to people, which helps both tenants and small landlords. Luckily, both the federal government and state governments are also stepping up in that regard. And it looks like hopefully we're going to be able to really make an impact on being able to keep people in their homes. Public housing is a huge issue on my plate. Golden Gate Village, which is a community we are very proud of in Marin City, in Southern Marin, needs a big revitalization. So we're working with residents on that. That's going to play out over the next several years. It's going to be very important to hear local voices. You may recall, Zennie, that's a very historic community.
Oh, yeah.
That came into existence after the shipyards were established during World War II. And some amazing folks live there. Some notable alums have come out of there over the years. And so Golden Gate Village, the facilities are aging. They need to be revitalized while retaining kind of, interestingly, the Frank Lloyd Wright kind of historic preservation piece of that neighborhood as well. So that's really exciting.
Now, I know that you're on the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. What's MTC and yourself focused on?
Yeah, so MTC, or Metropolitan Transportation Commission, is the Bay Area-wide transportation agency where all federal, state, and regional money flows through to our local communities. So I serve on that board as Marin's representative for our county and all our cities and towns. So each county has at least one rep, and then some of the bigger cities, Oakland, San Jose, San Francisco, also have their separate rep. So it's a tremendously important regional body. Billions of dollars flow through it. So needless to say, there's a bunch of transportation issues teed up right now, as well as housing. It also plays a role regionally in allocating monies and setting planning and priorities for housing. Our transit systems, and I'm a huge advocate, transit systems are on their back right now. I mean, you have situations, and you know this, systems like BART, regional bus systems like Golden Gate Transit in our area, Muni, they're down ridership 70, 80, in some cases 90%, just because people have been staying at home. So we had a huge critical infusion of federal dollars through the initial CARES Act. That has now run out. There's been a follow-up package through the federal government just in the nick of time. But beyond that, it's really going to be how can we, in effect, not only keep these agencies afloat, but really respond to what are the actual needs of riders going to look like going forward? Because we know we're going to need these systems. We know they serve a lot of different purposes, whether it's greenhouse gas and environmental benefits, to really being the primary source of transportation for many of our essential workforce, our low-income community members who have, again, been hardest hit. So a lot of different just issues, even things like how many people can ride on a bus now, right, with social distancing, and what about the issue of pass-ups as a result, and adjusting schedules. Good news is, and this is, again, a theme I want to emphasize, kind of the lemonade out of lemons. It's also really a great opportunity to look at how can we make our systems better? How can they be more coordinated? How can they be more seamless? It's about time we look at issues like fare integration, making sure that discounts are applicable, for example, around the region in a coherent way. Let's be innovative, as we do this, because I have a feeling traffic's gonna return quicker than we think once things get going again. So let's think proactively. So that's a big part of MTC, as well as, of course, our bridges and highways. The other piece I really love is bicycle and pedestrian options, active transportation, and kind of what we can do to improve that as well.
Yeah, speaking of transportation, I don't think I've ever known you to drive anything outlandish like a Shelby Cobra or anything like that.
No, in fact, I'm being pretty PC these days. I did lease a electric vehicle, a Nissan Leaf. I've got to say, anytime you kind of take the plunge, it's natural to think about, okay, what about range and all those issues? I got to tell you, I'm never going back. It's been easy, convenient once you get the hang of it, and that's only going to increase. I mean, as we get the necessary kind of charging infrastructure in place, which we're working on. I mentioned, I spent a lot of time on my bike, and I thought your listeners might be interested. So every year I do a personal challenge of going 2 months straight without driving a car. So only riding my bike or taking transit or the occasional carpool. So that's happening, I think, for the 6th year in April and May of this year. So the goal is, as always, to kind of learn more about our transit systems, what's working, what's not, how can we improve those bike paths, not to mention maybe losing a belt buckle, right? That's always a good thing as well. But at the end of the day, I end up, traversing thousands of miles in the sense of As a supervisor, you're all over the place regionally, and it's doable. Yeah, go ahead, Zennie.
I'll share some with you. I think there's a perception that maybe electric cars are more prevalent, say in California or someplace else. I still have my place in Oakland, but I'm here in Fayetteville, Georgia, and I went to shop at the Kroger locally for my mom, and there was this beautiful car about in the next few feet away, and everyone was checking it out, and it turned out to be a Porsche electric supercar.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's actually
I haven't seen that one yet. Yeah.
You hold on a second. We'll have a little off record fun here, side fun. You got to see this, man. This is like
let's see it.
I made a video of it, and I'm so proud of this little video I made of this supercar, and because it was beautiful, and when you see it, you're gonna say, "Oh my God!" I just have to type Porsche there, and let's see here. Scroll down real quick, and let's try this another way. Supercar. There. There it is. Okay, and then I'll open it like that, and that comes in, and through the magic of StreamYard, it's there it is, and I'll just fast forward here so you can get a shot of it, and I'll freeze it right there. And through the magic of StreamYard, I will switch screens, switch Tony West with this beautiful car. Yes, I said it just like that, Tony. And folks, you can get away with that with friends, okay? There it is. It is the
wow.
2021 $185,000 Porsche Taycan Turbo S electric supercar that goes from 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds.
I can see that in your future, Zennie.
Oh, you're pointing at it like, don't say that's my car when I grow up. I think the electric future is further along, because I didn't know this was electric, and a lot of people didn't know what it was passing by, and and so but I just want to show you, talking about how far we've come.
No, agreed, and the wrap on it, and I guess you're somewhat playing into that, is it does tend to be equated with higher end and wealthier folks, and that's something we have to be mindful of. We've got to broaden it, and we've got to look at the aftermarket as well as a possibility. We've got to keep providing the incentives. That was really attractive to me. California has been a leader. Proudly, but it's good to see it. You spotted one in Georgia, and hopefully, with the Biden administration kind of ramping up climate, that could be a good incentive as well.
But to follow on what we were saying, then get back to the conversation real quick. My perception was that electric cars are only economy cars. I didn't know that kind of thing existed. So what that tells me is that the economies of scale are such that downscale in terms of price, we're going to see more and more affordable electric cars. I think
that's right. That's right. So, and then concurrently with that, what we're also going to see is more of the infrastructure. So again, peace of mind for folks. You're not going to bet on the come by driving a certain distance. You're going to be assured there will be a charging station along the way.
Exactly. Hey, do you have any predictions for where people will be working when the pandemic restrictions are lifted?
Well, again, this is kind of the interesting question we're grappling with at MTC, for example. I think it's a little bit early right now to say. I do think, and you chime in as well, I imagine there are going to be a greater percentage of folks working at home going forward. You're not going to see everyone return to an office. So that has implications for commercial real estate, for example. It's going to be very interesting in the Bay Area because you are seeing folks, particularly in the tech sector, now realize that they can work in another state or certainly another town and still have their tech job. So that's going to be really interesting. So that's going to have impacts on housing. It's going to have, as previously mentioned, impacts on transportation. And it's going to be really interesting to delve into that. And
You want me to try?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just wanted to add that there's a statistic going around that San Francisco lost 89,000 people as a result of the pandemic, to follow on to what you're saying. And I talked to a friend of mine who came out to visit, and who's also in real estate. Actually, you know Phil Tagami, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And we went to dinner, and he was saying that he thought it was actually more like 100,000, which is basically.
Well, and to put it in perspective, statewide, California is actually going to lose a congressional seat. That's the first time, I think, ever. No, seriously, we're going to lose a congressional seat, probably in Southern California. But that's a direct result of huge population loss. So the Bay Area, a little bit less so, but we're hearing anecdotally every day, and the data is starting to back that up along the lines we were talking about. People are moving.
Wow.
There's alternatives they have, and they can either buy or rent a place cheaper. The Bay Area has a lot going for it, so there's always going to be a desire to live here. But how this all shakes out is going to be really fascinating. So, as I mentioned, kind of in my MTC role, we're going to be front and center on all those questions.
We're seeing the Biden administration. Actually, I could just put this on Oakland News Now about an hour ago now. Pivot right back to a focus on climate and climate change. And Marin historically has been an environmental leader. What are you all doing with respect to that right now?
Yeah, and obviously I appreciate the speed with which the Biden administration is moving. Certainly you can't move quick enough on this issue. Thank you, Marin. I think we can justifiably say and be proud that we have been an environmental leader and have environmental ethos over time. Those efforts are moving full steam ahead, and just as Biden-Harris administration is now doing correctly, in my view, with a focus really on environmental justice, impacts on our most disadvantaged communities. So we have two plans that we recently updated and reapproved. One is a drawdown, what's called Drawdown Marin. And if you haven't, I would recommend the book Project Drawdown by Paul Hawken, which is now being read broadly, actually worldwide. So we kind of cribbed the name a little bit with Paul's blessing, Drawdown Marin, and passed a strategic plan as well as an updated climate action plan. So we've set some ambitious goals, reducing emissions to 60% below 2005 levels by 2030, and set a target of net zero emissions by 2045. So Drawdown Marin is kind of a series of projects that are coming into focus. A lot of innovative ideas that encourage people to check it out. The Marin Carbon Project, which is carbon farming, which is really taking hold. Drive Clean Bay Area, going back to our earlier discussion on EV driving and infrastructure. And Resilient Neighborhoods, which is kind of a toolkit if you want to get together at your workplace or in your neighborhood with folks and figure out kind of across a number of different ways how you can live a more carbon free or carbon neutral lifestyle.
Hey, folks, just as a moment, you might be wondering who Paul Hawken is. He's a noted environmentalist who lives in the Bay Area, has for years, and has made a number of intellectual contributions to the conversation. What's Marin doing to address the continued threat of wildfires? I have friends who live in Sonoma who've been impacted. Well, what's going on? What's up?
Yeah, so thanks for asking. It's a real good segue from the climate change discussion, obviously. And we were fortunate. Marin taxpayers stepped up recently and formed what's called the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority with local funding and looking at everything from vegetation management, home hardening, education for folks, steps we can take individually as neighborhoods. You mentioned Sonoma, Zennie. I had the opportunity to actually go up there to both East Santa Rosa and Napa as those more recent fires were actually raging. And it was unbelievable. It was poignant to literally kind of be in neighborhoods and see one house fully intact, and then right next to it, a house burned to the ground, and so on and so on throughout a given neighborhood. And it was very evident that that home that remained standing had done the work, had switched out particularly flammable plants, had created space, had hardened their home, so to speak. All the things we all know we need to do. It was eye-opening to really see that stark of an example of the difference it makes. So yeah, I would just encourage everyone, if you haven't done so, check out Firewise communities, tap into what your counties are doing. A related piece that we're pushing on, of course, is our local utilities, right, to upgrade power lines, make those more resilient, look at creative things like microgrids, our telecommunications services. We all remember all too well how vulnerable our cell phone systems were when these fires hit or high wind events. So all the above is on the table right now. So great topic to bring up.
I almost hesitate to ask this. The only reason I do is because of these old ideas that California is going to basically fall into the ocean. But we're talking county government. Let's talk about the potential of sea level rise. Where are we with that?
Yeah. So again, I mean, just kind of to underscore the uniqueness of county government. So it's kind of a worldwide issue, but with local impacts. So absolutely. You know, basically, Marin in particular, as you know, is surrounded on three sides by water, with the Bay and the Pacific Ocean. So it's somewhat unique in that regard, but we're already living through sea level rise. So what we've done is created a program called Baywave that actually has completed a vulnerability assessment for all of our communities along the Bay. And this is, again, tied into regional partnerships who are doing the same as well. And we have a similar effort on our western shore on the Pacific Ocean. We are fortunate enough to have a Congressman, Jared Huffman, who has been taking this issue seriously for a number of years. I was able to partner with him and some of our great county staff to actually lobby in Washington, D.C. For actually some money toward ensuring that the Army Corps of Engineers, which oversees these flood control projects, is looking at sea level rise as it evaluates benefit cost for programs in particular communities. And language was included in a huge bill, the reauthorization of the Water Resources Development Act. It was signed into law, and it was very gratifying that now it's right there in black and white that sea level rise and related issues will be factored in as we evaluate flood control projects. So locally here, really excited. We're pursuing a number of different marsh restoration projects, for example, looking at natural systems as kind of the backbone of how we approach these issues. But you're absolutely right, Zennie, and this is, again, another one where it's going to be crucial to have those regional and statewide and national partnerships, particularly even out in your new turf. There's a bunch of different threats as well. More, I guess, hurricanes out there, right?
Tornado.
But yeah, absolutely. Tornadoes, yeah.
Florida, down where the Super Bowl is going to be.
There you go. Yep.
So as we close, what's the conclusion? We're talking about COVID and racial justice and sustaining our democracy. I just want to ask you personally, one of my favorite places to go in my whole life was Sweetwater. And you know where that is.
I do.
Yeah. We ever get to a point where Sweetwater will be open, I can hear a band and, you know, enjoy their food? Because I think, and, you know, just back to some semblance of what we had. I mean, it's going to be different, of course. Something's going to be virtual, but that human connection, you know?
Yeah, we're going to. So hang in there. And that's, again, this is literally how we're spending most of our time every day as your government representatives, really at all levels. The vaccination is going to be so critical, and just making sure that gets out to everyone with no, no unnecessary delay. Absolutely. We're going to continue to work through that. In the interim, we're going to keep wearing our masks. We're going to keep socially distant. Here, you may have heard earlier this week that the stay-at-home order was lifted by Governor Newsom, to the extent that now folks can go back and at least outdoor dine here, get their haircut, which I actually did earlier today for the first time in about 3 months. It felt pretty good. And you know, folks are able, just for this. Yeah, no, the perfect timing, right? So all good there. Continuing to work through that, continuing to support small businesses like the Sweetwater to make sure that they can weather this and that they can then thrive more than ever going forward. So, you know, thank you again, Zennie. I mean, really just to wrap it up again, we're living history right now through COVID, through racial justice, frankly, to fight to sustain our very democracy. Am I right?
Absolutely.
And in 2020, we saw literally that representative system is not a given. And in fact, it's fragile. It's something that was tested, that we have to continue to fight for. But in fact, democracy, in my view, prevailed with President Biden and Vice President Harris's election.
Yeah. What were your thoughts about what unfolded on January 6th?
Outrageous. It coincided shortly thereafter. We had a Board of Supervisors meeting, and I just let it rip. It was an insurgency fueled by that president, nothing less. And in my view, what that means is we need to take appropriate steps such that he can never run for office again. I think it was a wake-up call. I think in hindsight, it was not necessarily surprising given where things had been headed under that administration. So really what it ties into is with the changes we have now made, we being the people throughout this nation, by showing up to vote. And it was, again, a privilege to see that firsthand in a swing state when I was working as a poll observer in Milwaukee. It's led me to be really optimistic that these federal changes, along with the county level action we've talked about today, provide us with an opportunity to move forward and really have a positive impact on the daily lives of people. So I look forward to all of us working together at every level of government, again, starting with President Biden, Vice President Harris, to bring unity, decency, justice, and reverence for democracy back to the center of our nation where they belong. So I plan to continue to work with and for our community in the coming year ahead. My door is always open, of course, to you, Zennie, but also to anyone who would like to get in touch. My email is dconnolly, CONNOLLY, @marincounty.org. And again, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, let's do that one more time. We can write it on the caption and screen for people.
Absolutely. Ready?
Ready? Yeah.
D Connolly, CONNOLLY, @ marincounty.org.
County.org. And folks, there is, did I get it right?
Actually with an O.
Oh, with an O. Okay, let me try Marin. Oh, okay. Let me hold on a second.
CONNOLLY.
Let's try it. Let's try that again, folks. Let's have that one. Let's have added again. D CONNL. You think I know this by now? What's wrong with me? Since I just spelled it out, and it's not only that; it's in your it's in your caption. It's a long day, folks. Oh boy.
So I've got to hop off and get on another call, but thank you very much, Zennie. I look forward to staying in touch.
Hey, stick around in the backstage, folks. We're going to have him back, and we'll be back with more later. Subscribe to Zennie62 and bookmark oaklandnewsnow.com. That ends this broadcast.